winter, so we're really excited to share the RFP for public outdoor plazas, or POP, with you. My name is Mary O'Connor, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Planning and Development. On behalf of Mayor Lightfoot and Commissioner Cox, we welcome all of you. We're excited to tell you about this exciting new opportunity being offered through DPD's Chicago Recovery Plan program. With us today are colleagues of mine from the Planning Department, Nina Itamudia and Gabby Jurassic. Also joining us is Tom Anderson and Charlotte Emery with the Office of the Mayor. In the time we have today, we're going to highlight the major points in the RFP, and we will open it up for Q&A at the end of the presentation to clarify any questions or concerns you may have. Before we start, we want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and that all the information we will share today is already in the RFP, which will be posted in the chat for this Zoom. Starting now, you can drop any questions you have in the Q&A box. You can find that by hitting the Q&A button on Zoom, which will be located either at the top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen, depending on what type of device you are using. We'll do our best to answer your questions in writing directly here in Zoom. We'll also have a verbal Q&A later on that will be moderated by Nina, and we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as possible in that time allotted. If we don't get to your question, please email the Planning Department at dpd@cityofchicago.org. Let me say that email again, dpd@cityofchicago.org. That inbox is checked several times each weekday by communication staff from the Planning Department, and they will answer your questions or forward your inquiry to the appropriate staff member as quickly as possible. With that, I'll get started on the presentation. Today, we'll be going over the program overview, which will include an overview of the Chicago Recovery Plan and the POP program, as well as the application process and application tips. Our agenda today, I will provide a program overview and explain the Chicago Recovery Plan. So for those of you who may not know what the Chicago Recovery Plan is, it's a mix from the federal dollars under the American Rescue Plan, as well as the Chicago Economic Development Bond dollars, which total $1.2 billion in investments, which we will be making over the next 3 years for the city of Chicago. Through an extensive process of community engagement, consultation, and analysis, the city developed an integrated plan designed to drive transformational change. This plan invests in 2 key areas. The first is significant investments in the well-being of people and communities to allow them to thrive and collectively improve community safety. And second is strategic investments to create an equitable economic recovery for Chicago's neighborhood and the communities hardest hit by the pandemic. So these are the 2 overarching reasons we are talking about the Chicago Recovery Plan. As you may know, there are several other departments throughout the city that offer various CRP programs, but today we will only discuss the Department of Planning and Development. Our department has a specific allocation for approximately $230 million to help in the first 3 bullets, in which DPD will be in charge of moving forward: the community climate investment, community development, and small business and workforce support. Next slide, please. So the purpose of today is to talk about the request for proposal for the Public Outdoor Plaza program, known as POP, issued by DPD last Thursday. 2 years ago, the POP concept was started out of the necessity to help restaurants in disadvantaged areas stay open safely. Now we've seen how well this program works and how much the community loves it, so we want to keep it going. DPD will provide funding to organizations for the design, construction, programming, and maintenance of our outdoor plazas in Chicago neighborhoods. Plaza will highlight community-focused placemaking, support community identity, create safe and beautiful outdoor spaces for the public enjoyment, and contribute to the economic vitality of the Chicago neighborhoods. Next slide, please. We anticipated that there will be 2 RFPs for POPs. The first application deadline is Friday, February 25th. Now, I know this may not seem realistic for many of you, but for the reason for this aggressive and accelerated timeline is we know some of you have had a concept in mind for at least a year, but never had the funding to move it forward. This RFP is intended for applicants who are ready to launch their proposed program by June 14. We expect to release a second separate RFP in March, which is intended for applicants who would benefit from more time to prepare their proposal and who would be ready to launch their program for July. Next slide, please. So we are looking for proposals that produce an outpouring of creative ideas for transforming vacant lots into active community spaces for eating, pop-up vendors, community markets, movie night, and music and art programming with the use of furniture, pavement treatments, planting, lighting, and other placemaking tools. Civic spaces must feed the need of our neighborhood, and they need to be multifunctional. Next slide, please. So you'll see here, Pop Courts was developed in the Austin community with the goal to create a sense of place and identity for a community which has limited access to public open space. The team transformed a vacant lot at the corner of West Chicago and North Lockwood Avenue into a place for activity, gathering, and commerce. Turning around decades of disinvestment is no easy feat. Next slide, please. But this is what equitable neighborhood recovery looks like. By reclaiming this space for gathering proves that with a little bit of art, a lot of paint, and an army of volunteers, we can make dramatic progress in just a few short months. There's a basketball hoop here because they wanted to signal to young men and women that you are welcome in this space. There is a wall of art because they wanted residents to be surrounded by art and realize that their neighborhood is beautiful. There are canopies and a turf space so neighbors can have a place to relax in the shade. Commissioner Cox believes streets and sidewalks and vacant lots need to become civic assets. And that is what we are doing through the POP program. DPD is seeking proposals to reclaim open spaces and make it so beautiful, so rooted in its place that it engenders a sense of community and a sense of collective ownership. Next slide, please. So viable proposals are eligible for up to $500,000 in city funding for construction, labor, design, arts, and furnishings. And above is an outline of a sample budget. I know sometimes, our community partners think that they mention things that may appear to fall on deaf ears, but for our community partners, we have heard you. You will see that there is funding available for program management as well as the programming itself. We understand that there needs to be an alignment of great design and great programming, and they matter when you are reclaiming open space. We highly recommend that applicants build in a minimum of a 10% contingency to account for any overage and cost. Next slide, please. In this proposal, applicants should summarize their plan for the proposed plaza and articulate how their proposal reflects and benefits the community it is set in. Preferences will be given to proposals with locations that build upon existing efforts, such as Mayor Lightfoot's Invest Southwest initiative and community safety initiatives. It's important to engage all local stakeholders, such as local businesses on the corridor, aldermen, residential association, and even your local police district. We want neighbors to use this space and have it put a smile on their face. We want young people to see their neighborhood as beautiful, full of artwork that reflects their story. Civic spaces must feed the needs of a neighborhood, and they need to be multifunctional. Proposed locations should be along or near a key commercial corridor in community areas with low or moderate income. A list of these eligible communities based on their criteria is spelled out on page 25 of the RFP. Priority will be given to projects within historically disadvantaged areas, as well as areas that align with other city initiatives, such as Invest Southwest and public safety initiatives. There's a couple of opportunities to rent vacant lots. The city lots will be available, but they will require city approval and an environmental clearance. So this may be one of the most challenging properties to have access to. CDOT plazas are available, but will require CDOT approval, those that are available. And the Cook County Land Bank, if you go to their website, which is in the, your RFP, they have a list of available properties, and you can also purchase them. So let us know if this is a direction you'd like to go in, and we can help you try to get access to those. But we highly recommend using privately owned, but we will require a lease or for at least 3 years or a letter of intent. Next slide, please. So the selection for our selection criteria and the evaluation, all proposals received by the deadline will undergo a technical review to determine whether all required components have been addressed and included. Proposals determined by DPT to be incomplete will not be considered. DPD will evaluate and rate all proposals determined to be complete based on the following evaluation criteria. Applicants demonstrate it has the following key existing capacities for the program. The mission of the organization is aligned with objectives of the program. Experience or variability in performing the design, construction, programming, and community engagement activities noted in the RFP. Fiscal capacity to administer the program by demonstrating experience and ability to utilize grants with proper control and in compliance with federal and local regulations within an expedited time frame. Applicants demonstrate how it will be successful in performing activities listed in this RFP, including launching program by the specified date. In a number of years, the agency has positive net assets or fund balances as evident by IRS Form 990. And the overall quality and completeness of the application, not responding to any question in the application, will render the application incomplete and will be disqualified. So you'll see here, like, design is the central element in the planning and execution of the POPS program. Such spaces are intended to be functional, aesthetic venues to enhance the neighborhood. As such, grantees are expected to work with professional design firms and general contractors, as well as local talents, such as local artists, like to paint murals or street painting or any other type of sculptures. And we also recommend like bringing in other community volunteers to participate in the painting. But the city is seeking a thoughtful design that creates visually appealing community spaces that cultivate a sense of ownership, belonging, and safety through activation, physical transformation, community engagement, economic development. Please understand we are looking for these plazas to be designed to be available for 3 years. And then when we do the build out, we're asking that the grantees will need to comply with all the applicable laws, including city permitting requirements, as well as like other city departments. We work with BACP, CDOT, or DCASE, and we will help you acquire those permits. Applications should also include in their proposal the expected timeline for this build out and when work will be completed. Applications that will need to demonstrate that there's a clear path to an on-time program launch. So we would expect like a very detailed timeline with estimated costs. Let us know who your contractor is, what design firm you're working with. And then we also would like to see an example of what type of programs you will be offering throughout the next 3 years. Next slide, please. So just some guiding principles and tips. As I mentioned, like the completeness of the design. We'd like you to list who your architect and design team is, as well as who you're working with locally, such as your artist, or even if you're working with different vendors that will be used for pop-ups. It's really important that we see this detailed plan so we know that you have the capacity to meet these deliverables. And then, as mentioned before, just that you like more detail is welcomed here. We want to have you show us relative past experience of how you've done something similar like that, and that we understand that you and your team have the capacity to manage this. Next slide, please. Again, as I mentioned, the quality of the design plays a huge role here. We want it to be like visibly impactful and engaging. We want to make sure that you are out speaking to the community and getting their input, and when or even incorporating some of the community plans that have been put in place over the last years. And then again, to be in alignment with other city initiatives, such as the Invest Southwest or other safety initiatives. And then we're just looking for a very detailed budget, which, we gave you a sample before, but we want to know, we want to understand, like, we want a breakdown of like materials. So it'll show like furnishing. It can talk about landscape or shades, but we want that level of detail of how you're spending this money, as well as the art, murals, or any other designs that you're incorporating. We want to know who the GC is, who again the design team, and then we want to make sure that it has some place in here for contingency. And then it's just important to just make sure it's the overall responsiveness of the application. So we're coming to an end here, and our team's really excited that we are moving forward with this. We've already have our whole summer plan, visiting all your locations and going to ribbon cutting. So we're looking forward to partnering with you on this great initiative. So we can open it up to questions.
All right, thank you, Mary, for that great overview. So I'm going to, I'm looking in the chat. Don't forget, you can ask any question you like in the Q&A box, and then we will mark it complete. So the first two questions I believe you hit on, Mary, which were the outline of deliverables, as well as defining neighborhood retail corridors. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip to this third question. So one person asks, our renovation of an empty lot in Gage Park is adjacent to and part of our larger Potter HQ $5.3 million redevelopment. Expected completion of the open public plaza is linked to the adaptive reuse with completion expected in October 2022. Might we still apply for the second round even though the plaza won't be open by July 2022?
You are welcome to apply, but applicants that show that they can be open in July will be selected first. But if we have some available funding, then yes, we will. If we, depending on your proposal, then we can consider supporting your efforts.
All right, thank you. All right, so another question, do we have to have ownership of the space, or could we simply identify the space? Once we identify the space, can we use this funding to purchase the space?
So we would like to see that if you're leasing a space, we would like to see the lease term for at least 3 years or a letter of intent. Yes, their money can be applied for acquisition, but however, not every project will receive its full requested grant amount. So the funding cannot be solely used for the acquisition costs. I mean, that we want this to be a larger community-focused placemaking for the public enjoyment and contribute to the economic vitality of the Chicago neighborhoods. But what concerns me is if you still have to go through the purchasing process, I don't know if you will be able to meet these tight deadlines this year.
All right, thank you. Another question, how is funding dispersed? Is it reimbursement or are we able to submit invoices?
So funding this is a reimbursement program. So funding, if you provide, you send in your invoices, and that's how you get paid. But we will allow you to submit invoices throughout the stage of the timing of the work. So you could send them like 3 to 4 times during the course of the development of this project.
All right. If approved, does the space have 24-hour access to the public? Could the applicant limit the hours of public access and, as part of its budget, seek funding to secure the site, such as security fencing and patrol? Sorry.
I mean, we gave you an example of the budget, but so no, it doesn't have to have access for 24 hours. You will decide what the best time is for the community, but this is a community space, and we want it to be available for the community to use it when they have the opportunity to use it. It depends. I mean, it depends on if those costs fit within your budget. But again, we are looking at the design and that you incorporate the needs of the community, and that is, shown. So we'll take a look at it and what you feel are eligible expenses to create this plaza.
So basically design in those safety features included in the budget, make sure it looks presentable, kind of that design excellence.
And proportionally correct. Yeah, proportionally makes sense.
No wire fences. I think
no wire fences.
Right, what we're trying to avoid. All right. So I'm going to go ahead to the next question. Do all improvements need to be completed by June or July 2022, or does the plaza just needs to be launched, quote unquote, launched by June or July, and the improvements can be phased in over the 3 years?
No, we would like this project completed. So again, the timeline we put in for June, it is aggressive. We understand it's aggressive, but these are for community partners that have been, have a concept and a space already in mind. It's just that they never had the funding available to move it forward. So we just wanted to take advantage of these groups so that we could get this up for the community early in the summer. But for the next deadline, we are looking for these projects to be completed. If there's, a few things that may not, aren't completely finished, we understand that, but the majority of the project should be completed by the deadlines that are mentioned in the RFP.
All right, so, oh, sorry, 1 second, I lost my place. Okay, is there a site plan or design of the site required as part of the submittal, or just a narrative of design intent?
No, we've asked for a design and concept. And that's why, like, it mentions in here that you have to team up with an architect, design team, as well as a GC, so they should be able to assist with that.
Okay. Yes, we are looking for projects that are as ready as possible. So including those design sketches will help us make determinations on readiness. All right, the next question is, this may have been asked, but will this presentation and recording be accessible after the webinar? Yes, it will be on the DPD's website. We'll link it probably in the next few days once it downloads and we put all the information on the website. So yes, it will be available. Are murals eligible for this grant? This is an area we plan to use for community. This is an area that we plan to use for a community gathering. Can we use the funding for? Sorry, I'm trying to understand the question. So are murals eligible for the grant period? And then this area is, they're asking, is it meant for community gathering? Can we use the funding for a build out similar to 75th Street for seating?
So I'll do it. Yes, funding is available, can be used for murals, just depending on the space. I don't know, like if you have access to the wall that you're doing the mural on, or you'll have to get permission for the building that's butting up to the plaza. This grant is for vacant lots or in plazas. This is not like the al fresco program or access to the public way. So this is specifically to private or to vacant lots. But I will let you know that if that is of interest to you, that you would like to like something similar to 75th Street, and you would like outdoor dining, then I believe CDOT will be launching another round of al fresco RFPs this year. So you have that opportunity to apply for that as well.
Okay. How long did it take pop courts to be constructed?
It took about 9 months. And it's, well, so we started, this was a different, here's some of the things, and this is like over the 2 years, it's lessons learned and how do we make those changes. So like when we started this initiative, this was, we were moving fast, we were responding to COVID, civil unrest. We wanted to help the small businesses and bring the community back out to help, an opportunity to support. It took us a while to get some funding, and the funding was only $150,000. And so it was difficult to build out. We were like trying to, our SSA partner, like we were connecting them to a design team and they were looking for GCs. So it just took a little bit longer. We've changed that now of like, we're offering more funding up to $500,000. So that should help expedite the process. We are telling you to come forward right away with the GC and a designer, so it'll help execute as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Next question. Can you elaborate on the expectations in terms of formal community engagement?
Well, I mean, this space is for the community and the neighborhood, and you want to make sure their voices are heard and that this space represents what the community feels they would like it to look like. And so but you're also on a commercial corridor and you want to make sure it benefits the small businesses and helps them as well. So we're asking you to go out, like you can meet, we're assuming you, the delegate agencies, SSA service provider knows your community and has the pulse of really what they want. You've been around there a while, you've talked to a lot of neighborhood residents as well as businesses. So you can speak with your design team and they can, do the first rendering from what you share with them. Then you can share that with, have one night out there, or you can do a Zoom meeting and just talk about what your intentions are and these are your ideas. And then, so we're asking you like to make sure you're including your businesses, like if you're an SSA service provider and there's also a Chamber of Commerce, make sure they're aware and vice versa. Again, your 16th district, we encourage you to let your local alderman know what you're doing because he might be able to provide some assistance as well. And then on top of that, we've seen in pop courts, we saw on 75th Street of the community wanting to participate and so they helped with paint days and on 75th Street, they helped build those little parklets. So there's an opportunity for the community to participate and feel like they help build with their space. Does that answer the question?
I believe it gets, I believe it gets to the spirit of what they were asking about, community engagement.
And we're asking you to show that, like in the proposal, like stating that we met with the community. You can say the day. You could show a picture or however you want to do it. And you could say like, they love the idea or we ended up incorporating these two things from their feedback and input.
Mm-hmm. All right. So another question, when will the funding start? So,
so we, the first round is due on the 25th. And so we'll probably need about a week or 10 days, depending on the amount of applications, and we will review them. We will make an announcement and award our first round of grantees. And so after they sign a contract and get moving, it's just as quickly as they can get us paid invoices. And in the meantime, we will do our best to get you set up in our system to help move the payment as quickly as possible.
All right. Someone said, can you revisit the commercial corridor, retail corridor designation about how adjacent does the lot have to be to a corridor that's eligible?
Well, we want this on an active commercial corridor. And so it should be on, like within 2 blocks where you're seeing some form of retail, be it restaurants, grocery stores, service areas. But the point of this is we are not accepting applications that are on residential neighborhood streets. They should be on an arterial street.
Okay.
And I would think, and again, I apologize, but I would like, this RFP is targeted to our SSA service provider and other delegate agencies and community organizations that I believe many of you already represent, are servicing these corridors that we're thinking about.
All right. Can we use the funding to combine a garden on one part of the lot and a community engagement space on the other part?
Yeah, you're welcome to, if that's what the best use of that space is and that's what you and your community think, sure, we're open to that.
Okay, so I think a few of you are using the chat function to ask questions, so I'm gonna do my best to mine through some of the questions we have not answered since you're not using the Q&A function, so give me 1 second. There's one question in here about, on the sample budget that we showed, Mary, it says $40K for programming and maintenance. And this person is stating, you know, for a 3-year project, $13,000-ish a year doesn't seem like that's enough for programming and maintenance. Is there an expectation for the organizations to raise more money? And then in the RFP, you discussed having winter programming. Can you elaborate?
So yeah, the 40K is to, you know, help launch this and get you started, but we're hoping that moving forward that you will have the ability to raise funds to continue to maintain this plaza for the remaining 2 years. And, you know, as we said, we'd like this to be year round as best as we can have it open. And so you could do something as simple as a, you know, pictures with Santa, hot chocolate, or, you know, you could do like Small Business Saturday and have different vendors out there. It's just finding different ways to activate the space that allows people to come and visit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What if you have a lease for 2.5 years instead of 3? Is there flexibility in that timeline?
Sure. I mean, we will review each application and like it'll be case by case. But yes, we would consider something of that time frame.
Okay. Just somebody asked, just to clarify, this is only for vacant lots. Will that ever change? This particular program is meant for vacant lots, right?
This is specifically for vacant lots. We didn't want to compete with CDOT's al fresco program. They manage the public way and the sidewalks, and so this is again for yeah.
Okay. Is there, if they are using TIF funding for other city funding, can they also apply for this funding? I'm not sure what this question is meaning to ask.
This is not a so are they, did you say SPIF, correct me now?
No, they said TIF.
Oh,
TIF.
TIF.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what they mean by that. So
even I will just jump in here, even if for some reason you there was an opportunity to use TIF funding, which I highly doubt it, that funding wouldn't be available during the time frame we're asking you to launch this plaza.
Yes. And I'll also chime in a little bit here. Remember that these funds are a mix of federal funding from ARP and then economic development bond dollars. The federal funding does have a time limit on it and specifications on what can be spent on it. So don't assume that other city funds will be available if you apply for this particular grant program. It's coming from a particular source of funds that we've created this program around. The Zoom will be available on our city website in a business day or so. Can this be used for parking lots turned into seating for restaurants on corridors? Parking lots.
You know, yes, but we are hoping it benefits just not a specific industry. We wanted to be open for the general public for many uses, not strictly just for seating for restaurants.
And 1 second. Excuse me, my throat is getting dry. Trying to read these questions. All right. Does the funding allow us to pay staff that is engaged in the project while it's being developed?
Yes, there's a program management cost for the delegate agency in there. Like we showed an example in the budget.
All right. Will any necessary CDOT permits be expedited?
We will do our best. It depends on the, so the work we're doing in these plazas would not trigger CDOT review and permitting. It's when if it spills out into the street or sidewalk, be it like the street painting, the artwork that similar to popcorns. That's when it would, in this particular program, that's when it would trigger bringing in CDOT. But we will do our best to move these programs along in the review process.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think we just have one last question. Does Davis Bacon apply here? So I think they're talking about prevailing wage for federal funds.
We don't, and again, it would be a case by case, but we aren't in, like this program, like we've asked you to design and build out this community space, but for 3 years. And so we aren't intended that this is going to be permanent infrastructure and construction, so to speak, more than like design and bringing in furniture and landscaping. But depending on what you submit, we'll review, and if we feel it triggers prevailing wages, then we will notify you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're interested in a city-owned lot on the corridor. How do we get permission to use that lot?
So I would email me the address. As I mentioned earlier, though, the city right now is going through the vacant lot environmental assessments. So unless we have a clearance, it may not be eligible at this time. They are doing a mass assessment for many of our corridors right now. So we probably won't have results for the February deadline, but we may be able to share properties with everyone for the March deadline. But if you have a place in mind already, just send it to me and I will send it over to our team and ask if they have done the assessment yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think, does the funding allow to pace? Oh yes, I think we've answered all of the questions that were put in the Q&A, and then some that were put in the chat. Most of the ones that were put in the chat that we did not already answer from the Q&A. So with that, unless there's any last questions, we will go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you so much for attending this call. There's about 50 people on this call currently, but we will be putting this webinar and the materials on our website as well in 1 to 2 business days. All right, and with that, I will go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. We're excited to see your proposals come up through.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.